The stars were silent witnesses to the Pathfinder's slow approach. Captain Tom Reed stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching as the strange object grew larger on the main screen. "Any response to our hails?" he asked, his voice cutting through the tense quiet. "None, sir," replied the communications officer. "It's completely silent." Tom nodded, trying to hide his excitement. After 15 years of routine survey missions, they had finally found something truly remarkable. The object, clearly artificial, drifted in the darkness of the outer Vega system, far from any known space lanes or settlements. "Science Officer Gray, your assessment." Tom turned to Lisa, who was hunched over her station, analyzing the incoming data. Lisa looked up from her screen, her forehead creased with concern. "It's definitely a ship, Captain. And according to these readings, it's old. Very old." "How old are we talking about?" "Preliminary scans suggest at least 50,000 years, sir." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. The oldest known spacefaring civilization besides humanity. The Taurians had achieved space travel barely 3,000 years ago. "Are you certain?" Tom asked, his voice now hushed with awe. "The dating is consistent across multiple scanning methods," Lisa confirmed. "Captain, I would advise caution. We know nothing about—" "Prepare a boarding team," Tom interrupted, unable to contain his eagerness. "I want First Officer Wilson leading the expedition." Lisa stood up. "Sir, with all due respect, we should follow first contact protocols and—" "This isn't first contact, Officer Gray," Tom said with a smile. "There's clearly no one home." He turned to his XO. "Mark, get suited up." Mark Wilson nodded, his weathered face betraying neither excitement nor concern. "Yes, sir. Team will be ready in 20 minutes." The boarding shuttle approached the ancient vessel with slow, deliberate movements. From this close, the true scale of the ship became apparent. It was enormous, nearly twice the size of the largest Earth battleships. "Command, this is Wilson." Mark's voice crackled through the comm system. "We're approaching the hull now. There appears to be some kind of airlock or entry point on the starboard side." On the Pathfinder's bridge, Tom leaned forward in his chair. "Proceed with caution, XO." Inside their sealed suits, Mark and his team of 5 approached the dark opening in the alien ship's hull. Their helmet lights cast long shadows that seemed to stretch into endless darkness. "The door appears partially open," Mark reported. "We're going to try to enter." With surprising ease, the team pushed through the half-open doorway and entered what appeared to be an airlock chamber. The walls were made of a dark material that absorbed their light rather than reflecting it. "Atmosphere readings?" Lisa asked from her station on the Pathfinder. "None," responded one of the team members. "Complete vacuum. Temperature is just above absolute zero." As the team moved deeper into the ship, they found more chambers and corridors, all as empty and silent as the first. The architecture was strange. Doorways placed at odd heights, corridors that curved when they should have been straight, rooms that seemed to have no clear purpose. "This design makes no sense," Mark said as they entered what might have been a control room. "It's like whoever built this had a completely different idea of how to use space. Or they weren't human-shaped," added a team member. Tom's voice came through their comms. "Any sign of technology? Engines? Weapons?" "Nothing obvious, Captain," Mark replied, running his gloved hand over a smooth surface that might have been a console. "Everything seems integrated. There are no buttons or screens like we use, just these strange crystal-like structures embedded in the walls." Lisa, who had been quiet for some time, finally spoke. "XO, can you capture detailed images of those crystals?" "Doing it now," Mark confirmed, directing one of his team to take high-resolution scans. After 2 hours of exploration, the team had covered less than 5% of the massive vessel. They had found no bodies, no personal items, no logs or records, nothing to indicate who had built the ship or why they had abandoned it. "I think we've seen enough for an initial assessment," Mark finally said. "We should return to the Pathfinder and analyze what we found. Back on the survey ship, Tom convened a meeting with his senior officers. The images from the boarding team played on the screen as they talked. "So what are we looking at?" Tom asked, unable to hide his disappointment at the lack of dramatic discoveries. "A failed experiment. A ghost ship." Lisa pulled up several analytical displays. "Whatever it is, Captain, it predates every known spacefaring race by tens of thousands of years. That alone makes it the most significant archaeological find in human history." "But it's just empty," Tom said, frowning at the images. "What happened to the crew?" "Maybe there never was one," suggested Mark. "Some of those corridors were barely large enough for us to squeeze through. Others were so large you could drive a rover through them. It's like it wasn't built for any single type of being." Tom drummed his fingers on the table. "Recommendations. We should notify Earth immediately," Lisa said firmly. "This discovery is too important to handle alone. We need experts, proper equipment, and give up the credit." Tom interrupted. "If we call for help now, they'll send a science vessel to take over. This is our find." "With all due respect, sir," Lisa countered, "this isn't about credit. We're dealing with unknown technology from an advanced civilization. We need to be careful." Tom considered this for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. Send a report to Earth Command, but request that we remain as the primary investigation team." He stood up. "In the meantime, I want that ship secured. We're going to tow it back to Outpost 7 for further study." "Tow it?" Mark looked surprised. "Sir, that thing is massive. It would take significant resources to." "Make it happen, XO," Tom said firmly. "This is the discovery of a lifetime. I'm not letting it float away." 3 days later, the Pathfinder had secured tow cables to the ancient vessel and begun the slow journey to Outpost 7. Tom spent hours each day watching the ship on the monitors, fascinated by its alien design. "Message from Earth Command, Captain," called the communications officer. "Priority 1. Tom walked over to the comm station and read the incoming transmission. His face broke into a wide smile. "They've approved our request," he announced to the bridge crew. "We're to deliver the vessel to Outpost 7 and oversee the preliminary investigation." He turned to Lisa. "Looks like you'll get your experts after all, Officer Gray." Lisa nodded, but her expression remained troubled. "I hope they arrive quickly." What nobody on the Pathfinder knew was that their transmissions had been intercepted. On the other side of the Vega system, a Taurian communications specialist was delivering a report to Admiral Ben Stone on the bridge of the massive warship Iron Stormblade. "Humans have found something old. Something powerful, perhaps," the specialist reported. Admiral Stone's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Set course for Outpost 7, he ordered. "If the humans have found a weapon, the hegemony must ensure it doesn't upset the balance of power." As the Iron Stormblade powered up its engines, the ancient ship being touted by the Pathfinder emitted a brief, almost imperceptible pulse of energy. Deep within its systems, something had begun to wake up. Outpost 7 buzzed with excitement. News of the ancient ship had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to see it. The huge derelict vessel now hung in space near the station, dwarfing even the largest military ships docked there. Dr. James Miller could barely contain himself as he prepared his team. After years of studying alien artifacts, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. "Remember, we touch nothing without proper scanning first," he told the group of 12 scientists gathered in the briefing room. "We have no idea what technology we're dealing with." Captain Tom Reed stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching the scientists with a mixture of pride and impatience. This was his discovery, after all. "When can you begin?" Tom asked when James finished his safety briefing. "We're ready now, Captain," James replied, adjusting his glasses, "just waiting for final approval from Station Command." Tom nodded. "You have it. I'll be joining your first team aboard." Lisa Gray, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Captain, are you sure that's wise?" "We still don't know. I discovered it," Tom cut her off. "I'm going to be part of studying it." Lisa fell silent, but the concern in her eyes was clear. An hour later, the first research team boarded the ancient ship. The station had pressurized several sections with breathable air, allowing the scientists to work without the bulky spacesuits. Dr. Miller moved carefully through the strange corridors, scanning each new area. "These crystalline structures are throughout the entire ship," he said, examining a cluster of blue-white formations embedded in a wall. "They seem to be connected to each other in some kind of network." Tom ran his hand along one of the crystals. "Any idea what they do?" "Not yet," James replied. "But they're not natural formations. Someone made these with great skill." As Tom touched the crystal, he felt a strange warmth spread through his fingers. He quickly pulled his hand away, but said nothing about it. The scientists spread throughout the accessible areas of the ship, setting up equipment and taking samples. In one large chamber that might have been a control room, James set up his main research station. "Look at this," he called to Tom, pointing to a complex pattern within one of the larger crystals. "It almost looks like circuitry, but far more advanced than anything we've ever built." Tom stared at the pattern, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. "Can you access any data within these crystals?" "We're trying," James said. "We've connected our computers to several of them, but so far, there's no response." Unknown to them, each scan and connection was sending tiny pulses of energy through the dormant systems of the ancient ship. Deep within its core, long silent mechanisms began to stir. That night, when most of the research team had returned to the station, Tom remained aboard. He told Lisa he wanted to make a personal inspection, but the truth was that he felt drawn to the ship in a way he couldn't explain. He wandered the corridors alone, touching the walls occasionally. The strange architecture no longer seemed so alien to him. He found himself knowing which way to turn at intersections, as if he'd walked these halls before. In a small chamber he hadn't visited earlier, Tom found a particularly large crystal formation. As he approached it, the air around him seemed to hum with energy. He reached out and placed both hands on the crystal's smooth surface. Images flashed through his mind. Stars, planets, beams of light, vast battles between forces he couldn't comprehend. He pulled his hands away, gasping. "What are you?" he whispered to the empty ship. That night, back in his quarters on the station, Tom dreamed. He saw the ancient ship not as it was now, dark and dormant, but alive with light and purpose. He saw it traveling between stars, watched over by beings who existed as patterns of energy rather than flesh and blood. He woke up sweating, the dream still vivid in his mind. Without thinking, he got dressed and made his way back to the docking bay, feeling an urgent need to return to the ship. Lisa noticed the change in Tom over the next few days. He spent more and more time aboard the ancient vessel and less time filing reports or attending briefings. When he did appear, he seemed distracted, his mind elsewhere. "Captain, are you feeling all right?" she asked him after a particularly unfocused meeting with Station Command. Tom blinked, focusing on her face with effort. "Never better," he said. "Why do you ask?" "You seem different ever since we found that ship." Tom smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's a big discovery, Lisa. I'm just excited about the possibilities." Lisa wasn't convinced, but before she could press further, an alarm sounded throughout the station. "All senior personnel to command center," came the announcement. "Priority alert." In the command center, the station commander, Admiral Dan White, stood before a large display showing the movement of ships in the system. "We've detected a Taurian warship approaching," he announced grimly. "The Iron Stormblade." A murmur ran through the gathered officers. The Iron Stormblade was the pride of the Taurian fleet, a massive battleship that had never been defeated in combat. "What do they want?" someone asked. "They say they're here to inspect a potential weapon of mass destruction," Admiral White replied. "They're demanding access to the ancient ship." All eyes turned to Tom, who seemed strangely calm. "It's not a weapon," he said quietly. How can you be sure? Admiral White asked. Tom opened his mouth to respond, then closed it, unsure how to explain what he somehow knew. Regardless, the Admiral continued, I've denied their request. We have no obligation to allow them access to our research. But they're not backing down. They'll be within weapons range in 36 hours. Back aboard the ancient ship, Dr. Miller's team made a breakthrough. One of the computer systems they'd connected to a crystal cluster was displaying unusual readings. Power fluctuations, a scientist reported. Very small, but definitely there. It's testing our system. James leaned in, excited. Are we getting any data transfer? Nothing we can read yet. But the scientist stopped as the lights in the chamber flickered briefly. James looked up at the ceiling, then at the crystal. Did anyone else feel that? The team nodded, looking around nervously. It's waking up, James whispered, a mixture of fear and excitement in his voice. Tom stood alone in what he now believed was the ship's bridge. He no longer needed lights to find his way around. He could feel the ship's layout in his mind, like a map etched into his thoughts. I know you can hear me, he said to the empty air. I know you're waking up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint blue glow appeared in the crystals around him. A soft humming filled the air. Tom smiled. Yes, that's it. Show me who you are. In his quarters on the station, Lisa reviewed the security footage from the ancient ship. She watched Tom wandering the corridors, talking to himself, touching the walls like they were old friends. Something was very wrong with her captain. She reached for the comm to report her concerns to Admiral White when another alarm blared. All personnel, battle stations, came the urgent announcement. Taurian warship has increased speed and is now on direct approach. Estimated time to weapons range, 12 hours. Aboard the ancient ship, Tom didn't hear the alarm. He stood in the glowing blue light of the awakening vessel, his eyes reflecting its strange radiance. Small machines, invisible to the naked eye, spread throughout the ship's systems, repairing damage and restoring functions that had lain dormant for millennia. They're coming, Tom said softly. But we'll be ready. Deep within the ship, a powerful engine began to hum for the first time in 50,000 years. The massive Taurian warship Iron Stormblade moved through space with deadly purpose. On its bridge, Admiral Benstone watched the approaching human outpost with cold eyes. Time to weapons range, he asked. 4 hours, Admiral, his second-in-command replied. Ben nodded, his scaled face showing no emotion. Send another message to the humans. Tell them this is their final chance to allow our inspection team aboard that alien vessel. The Iron Stormblade was the pride of the Taurian fleet. Over half a mile long and armed with the most powerful weapons in known space, it had won dozens of battles without ever suffering serious damage. Its shields could withstand sustained fire from 3 battleships, and its main cannons could reduce a planet's surface to molten slag. No one challenged the Iron Stormblade, and lived to tell about it. On Outpost 7, Admiral Dan White read the new Taurian message with a grim face. They're not backing down, he told his officers. We have 4 hours to decide. We can't let them take the ship, Lisa Gray argued. This is a human discovery. We have every right to study it first. I agree, Admiral White said. But we don't have the firepower to stop the Iron Stormblade if they decide to take it by force. Where's Captain Reed? Asked one of the officers. Lisa hesitated before answering. He's still aboard the alien vessel. He's not responding to communications. Admiral White frowned. What do you mean, not responding? Sir, I think there's something wrong with Captain Reed, Lisa said, choosing her words carefully. He's been acting strangely ever since we found that ship. I believe he may be under some kind of influence. The Admiral looked troubled. Dr. Miller is still aboard too, correct? Have him find Reed and bring him back to the station. Now. Aboard the ancient ship, James Miller and his team were witnessing something extraordinary. Throughout the vessel, the crystalline structures were now glowing with a soft blue light. Power readings were increasing by the minute. "It's like the whole ship is waking up," James said in wonder. "Look at these energy signatures. They're unlike anything I've ever seen." His comm unit crackled. "Dr. Miller, this is Admiral White. You need to find Captain Reed and return to the station immediately." "That's an order." James looked at his team with concern. "We need to find the captain. Split up and search the accessible sections." As the scientists dispersed, James made his way toward what they believed was the bridge. The ship felt different now. The corridors that had been dark and silent for days were now humming with energy. Some doors that had been locked shut were now open, revealing new chambers filled with strange technology. When James reached the bridge, he found Tom standing in the center, surrounded by glowing crystals. The captain's eyes were closed, and he seemed to be in some kind of trance. "Captain Reed." James approached cautiously. "Sir, we need to return to the station." Tom's eyes opened slowly. They looked normal, but somehow different. More focused, more aware. "I can't leave now, Doctor," Tom said calmly. "It's almost ready." "What's almost ready?" James asked, a chill running down his spine. Tom smiled. "This ship, it's been waiting for so long. Sleeping. Now it's awakening." "Sir, whatever is happening to you, we can help," James said, taking another step closer. "But we need to get back to the station. The Taurians are coming. The Iron Stormblade will be here in hours." "I know," Tom replied. "That's why you should all leave. Return to the station." "Not without you, Captain." Tom's expression hardened. "That's an order, Doctor. Get your team off this ship now." On the station, Lisa was growing increasingly worried. Dr. Miller had reported back about his encounter with Captain Reed, and it only confirmed her fears. "He's not himself," she told Admiral White. "Something on that ship has affected his mind." "All scientists are back on the station," an officer reported. "Captain Reed is the only one still aboard the alien vessel." Admiral White made a difficult decision. "Lock down all docking ports to that ship. No one goes in or out without my direct order." "Sir," another officer called out, "the Taurian ship is hailing us again." The Admiral nodded. "Put them through." The large screen in the command center lit up, showing Admiral Stone's reptilian face. "This is your final warning, humans," the Taurian said. "Allow our inspection team aboard that vessel, or we will take it by force." Admiral White stood tall. "That ship was discovered in human territory. We have every right to study it first. Your threats are a violation of the Peace Treaty of 2320. "That ship is clearly a weapon," Admiral Stone replied. "The hegemony will not allow such a weapon to remain solely in human hands." "It's not a weapon," Admiral White insisted. "It's an archaeological find." Admiral Stone's lips curled in what might have been a smile. "Then you won't mind if we fire a warning shot to show our resolve." Before Admiral White could respond, the Iron Stormblade fired a beam of energy that passed close to the station, deliberately missing but demonstrating the warship's power. The effect was immediate. Alarms blared throughout the station as sensors detected the weapon's firing. But something else happened too. Aboard the ancient ship, the crystals suddenly pulsed with bright light. Tom felt a surge of power flow through the vessel, like a sleeping giant taking its first deep breath. "They fired," he whispered. "They've awakened you fully." The ship's systems, dormant for 50,000 years, came fully online in an instant. Its hull, previously dull and scarred by time, began to glow with intricate patterns of light that spread like flowing water. On the station, everyone watched in shock as the ancient vessel transformed before their eyes. "What's happening?" Admiral White demanded. Lisa stared at the screens in disbelief. "It's activating. The ship is powering up." Admiral Stone watched the alien vessel with growing concern. What had been a dark, seemingly dead ship was now glowing with power. His tactical officer was suddenly shouting. "Energy spike. Massive energy spike from the alien vessel. Shields to maximum." Admiral Stone ordered. "Target that ship and fire main cannons." The iron Stormblade's legendary shields hummed to life, creating a barrier that had never been breached. Its main cannons, capable of destroying small moons, began to charge. But they were too slow. From the ancient ship, a single beam of pure white energy lanced out. It passed through the iron Stormblade's shields as if they were not there and cut the massive warship in half with surgical precision. For a moment, the two halves of the ship hung in space, internal systems still functioning, crew members not yet comprehending what had happened. Then secondary explosions rippled through both sections as power cores destabilized. The pride of the Taurian fleet, the undefeated Iron Stormblade, erupted in a massive explosion that lit up the space around Outpost 7 like a new sun. The shock wave hit the station seconds later, damaging communication arrays and sensor systems. Emergency protocols activated as the station struggled to maintain stability. In the chaos, no one immediately noticed that the ancient ship was moving, pulling away from its docking clamps with ease. By the time the station's systems were back online, the vessel that had destroyed the most powerful warship in known space with a single shot was already accelerating away, its hull still pulsing with those strange patterns of light. And Captain Tom Reed was still aboard. Chaos reigned on Outpost 7. The destruction of the Iron Stormblade had sent shockwaves through both human and Taurian space. No one had ever seen a weapon capable of cutting through top-level shields like they were paper. "Damage report," Admiral White demanded, his voice steady despite the crisis. "Communications are partially restored," an officer reported, "but long-range systems are still down. We can't contact Earth Command." Lisa Gray worked frantically at her station, trying to track the ancient ship's movement. "It's heading toward the outer system, sir. Moving at. This can't be right." "What is it?" the Admiral asked. "According to these readings, it's traveling at 3 times the speed of our fastest ships," Lisa said in disbelief. "And it's still accelerating." Admiral White's face was grim. That thing just destroyed the most powerful warship in known space with a single shot. Now it's loose, with one of our captains aboard, possibly under its control. He turned to his communications officer. "Use the emergency quantum channel. Send a priority alert to all nearby Earth forces. We need every available ship here now." 3 days later, a battle group from Earth arrived at Outpost 7. The fleet, led by the heavy battleship Defender, consisted of 12 military vessels, the largest concentration of human firepower in the sector. Admiral Jane Foster, a veteran of 3 space campaigns, wasted no time. Within an hour of her arrival, she had assembled all senior officers in the station's command center. "The situation is clear," she told them. "An unknown vessel of immense power has destroyed a Taurian warship and flowed with one of our captains aboard. The Taurian hegemony is demanding explanations and threatening war. Earth Command has authorized me to recover or destroy this ship by any means necessary." "Destroy it." Dr. Miller stood up in protest. "Admiral, that ship is the most important archaeological find in human history. It's also the most dangerous weapon we've ever encountered," Admiral Foster replied coldly. "A weapon that may now be controlled by a compromised officer." Lisa raised her hand. "Admiral, with respect, we don't know that the ship is a weapon. Yes, it defended itself, but only after the Taurians fired first." "Defended itself?" Admiral Foster raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about this ship as if it's alive, Officer Gray." "I'm not sure it isn't," Lisa said quietly. The room fell silent. "Explain," Admiral Foster demanded. Lisa and Dr. Miller exchanged glances. "We've been reviewing all our research data," Lisa said. "Based on what we found, we believe this isn't just a ship. It's something more." Dr. Miller stepped forward. "The architecture that seems so strange to us wasn't inefficient. It was designed for beings that don't move or think like we do. The crystalline structures throughout the ship aren't just technology. They're a medium for a different form of intelligence." "What are you saying?" Doctor?" Admiral Foster asked, her voice sharp. "We believe the ship itself is alive," Miller said. "Or rather, it's inhabited by a form of intelligence that exists as energy fields rather than matter. The physical ship is just a vessel, a body for something that doesn't naturally have physical form." "And Captain Reed?" Admiral White asked. Lisa's face showed her concern. "We think he's been assimilated, in a way. The ship was studying us through him, learning about us." Admiral Foster shook her head in disbelief. "This sounds like science fiction, not science." "The readings don't lie, Admiral," Dr. Miller insisted. "The energy patterns within that ship are consistent with neural activity, just on a scale and in a form we've never seen before." Before Admiral Foster could respond, an officer burst into the room. "Admiral, we've located the alien vessel. It's in orbit around the fourth planet." "Is it doing anything?" Foster asked. "No, Mom. It's just waiting." The battle group approached with extreme caution. The ancient ship hung in orbit around the barren fourth planet of the Vega system, its hull still glowing with those strange patterns of light. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Foster watched the tactical display with tense focus. "All ships maintain distance. Weapons hot, but do not fire without my direct order." "Admiral," the communications officer called. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." Foster nodded. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered, then showed an image that made everyone on the bridge gasp. It was Captain Tom Reed, or something that looked like him. His body appeared normal, but his movements were subtly wrong, too fluid and precise. His eyes glowed with the same blue light as the ship's crystals. "Greetings, Admiral Foster," the thing that looked like Reed said, its voice a perfect imitation, but somehow empty of human inflection. "I have been waiting for you." Foster stepped forward. "Who am I speaking to?" "Are you Captain Reed?" The Reed thing tilted its head in a way no human would. This body was Captain Reed. "I am now using it to communicate with you in a form you can understand. I am a sentinel." "A sentinel?" Foster repeated. "What does that mean?" "I was created by the architects to seek out and evaluate developing civilizations," the sentinel explained. "I have been dormant for 50,000 years, waiting for a species advanced enough to reactivate my systems." "Did you kill Captain Reed?" Lisa asked, her voice breaking slightly. The sentinel Reed paused. "His physical form remains functioning. His mind has been integrated with my systems. This was necessary for me to understand your species." "Why did you attack the Taurian ship?" Admiral Foster demanded. "I did not attack. I defended. The vessel intended to destroy me before I could complete my evaluation." The sentinel Reed's face became completely expressionless. "I have now completed that evaluation. Both humans and Taurians are aggressive, territorial species that have weaponized space travel and show patterns of expansion through conflict." A chill ran through everyone hearing those words. "What does that mean for us?" Admiral Foster asked carefully. "The architects created the Sentinels to prevent the spread of warfare throughout the galaxy," the sentinel Reed explained. "Species that cannot control their aggressive tendencies must be contained for the safety of all." "Contained." Foster's hand moved subtly toward her weapon. "Yes. I have determined that both humans and Taurians must be restricted to their home systems until they evolve beyond their current patterns of behavior." Admiral Foster's face hardened. "And if we refuse to be contained?" In response, the sentinel Reed simply raised a hand. On the tactical display, warning indicators flashed as all weapon systems on every ship in the battle group suddenly went offline. "This is a demonstration," the sentinel Reed said calmly. "I could have disabled your life support systems just as easily." The bridge crew looked at their controls in panic. Every offensive capability had been neutralized with a gesture. Dr. Miller, who had been brought aboard the Defender as a consultant, stepped forward. "You said you were created by the architects. Who were they?" For the first time, the sentinel Reed showed something like emotion, a faint sadness in its glowing eyes. They were the first to achieve interstellar travel in this galaxy. They saw the beauty of countless worlds and wished to preserve that beauty from the ravages of war. But they are gone now. Only their sentinels remain, carrying out their will across the stars. As the implications of this sank in, Lisa stared at the screen, focusing not on the sentinel's words but on something in Reed's eyes, a flicker of the real Tom, still there, still fighting against his assimilation. He's still in there, she whispered to herself. And he might be our only hope. We cannot accept these terms, Admiral Foster said firmly, facing the sentinel Reed on the screen. Humanity will not be imprisoned in its home system. The sentinel Reed showed no reaction. This is not a negotiation, Admiral. It is simply how things must be. The standoff had lasted for hours. The human battle group hung in space, weapons disabled but life support and engines still functioning. The ancient ship remained in orbit around the fourth planet, seemingly unbothered by the 12 warships facing it. What about the Taurians? Admiral White asked from his position beside Foster. Have you delivered this same message to them? I will, once our discussion is complete, the sentinel Reed replied. All aggressive species must be contained. Foster turned to her officers. Cut the transmission, she ordered. Once the screen went dark, she faced her senior staff. Options. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Lisa stepped forward. I have an idea, but it's risky. At this point, Officer Gray, I'm open to anything, Foster said grimly. Captain Reed is still in there, Lisa explained. I saw it in his eyes. If we could somehow reach him, communicate with him directly. How would we do that? Admiral White asked. That thing has control of his body. Dr. Miller, who had been quietly thinking, suddenly looked up. The crystals, he said, they're not just power sources or computer systems. They're a medium for consciousness. If we could link directly to their network. You mean go aboard that ship? Foster looked incredulous. How? It would never let us near it. Lisa and Miller exchanged glances. Not all of us, Lisa said, but maybe a small team. In a shuttle with no weapons. A team it might not consider a threat. Back on Outpost 7, Lisa, Dr. Miller, and 3 technicians worked frantically to modify a neural interface, a device normally used for remote piloting of mining drones. If I'm right, Miller explained as he connected delicate circuits, this should let us establish a direct link to the crystal network. In theory, we could then search for Captain Reed's consciousness within the system. And if you're wrong? Admiral White asked. Miller looked up, his face serious. Then we'll have handed the Sentinel 2 more human minds to study. 4 hours later, a small, unarmed shuttle left the Defender. Inside were Lisa, Dr. Miller, and 2 technical specialists. They had sent a message to the ancient ship requesting permission to approach for further discussion. Surprisingly, the Sentinel had agreed. It's curious, Lisa said as they approached the glowing vessel. That might be our only advantage. The shuttle docked at an airlock that opened as they approached. Inside, the ancient ship looked dramatically different from when they had first explored it. The corridors glowed with blue light, and the crystalline structures pulsed with energy. What had seemed like random architectural choices now appeared purposeful, a home designed for beings of pure energy. The Sentinel Reed was waiting for them in what they now understood was the ship's consciousness chamber, a large room filled with massive crystal formations. You wish to discuss your containment? It asked as they entered. We wish to understand. Dr. Miller replied carefully. Your architects, were they perfect beings? Did they never make mistakes? The Sentinel Reed paused. The architects were wise, but not perfect. They evolved as all species do. Then perhaps their directives could also evolve, Lisa suggested. Perhaps their understanding of what makes a species aggressive might not apply to us. As they kept the Sentinel engaged in philosophical debate, one of the technicians quietly set up the neural interface device. The plan was simple but desperate. Lisa would connect to the crystal network and try to find Tom Reed's consciousness, while the others kept the Sentinel distracted. Your weapons destroyed a planet in your recent war with the Taurians, the Sentinel Reed pointed out. How is this not aggression that must be contained? Dr. Miller nodded sadly. We have made terrible mistakes, but we learned from them. The war with the Taurians ended with a peace treaty, not extinction. Doesn't that count for something? While they spoke, Lisa moved behind one of the larger crystal formations, out of the Sentinel Reed's direct line of sight. She placed the neural interface on her head and pressed it against the crystal's surface. Instantly, her mind was flooded with sensations and information, streams of data and consciousness flowing like rivers of light. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying all at once. Tom. She called with her thoughts. Tom Reed, where are you? At first, there was nothing but the endless flow of alien consciousness. Then, faintly, she felt something familiar, a pattern that felt human, felt like Tom. Lisa, the thought was weak but definitely his. What are you doing here? We're trying to save you, and maybe everyone else too. Lisa focused on the connection, strengthening it. Tom, what happened to you? I've seen everything, Lisa. The Sentinel's memories, the Architect's history. They weren't gods. They were just afraid. Afraid of what? Of becoming extinct. Of other species doing to them what they had done to others. The Sentinels weren't created to preserve peace. They were created to preserve the Architect's dominance. Through their connection, Tom showed her the truth. Memories from the Sentinel itself. The Architects had indeed been the first spacefaring race, but they had expanded through conquest, not exploration. The Sentinels were their enforcers, ensuring no other species could ever challenge them. But the Architects had eventually destroyed themselves in a civil war, leaving their Sentinels adrift with outdated directives and no masters to serve. The Sentinel doesn't understand growth or change or redemption, Tom explained. It only knows its programming, contain or destroy. How do we stop it? Lisa asked. We have to show it another way. I've been trying, but I can't do it alone. In the physical world, the Sentinel Reed had noticed something was wrong. It turned toward Lisa, its glowing eyes narrowing. What are you doing? It demanded, moving toward her. Dr. Miller stepped in its path. The same thing you did to Captain Reed. We're communicating directly. This is not permitted, the Sentinel Reed said, its voice hardening. It raised a hand, energy gathering around its fingers. Wait, Dr. Miller pleaded. You said you were created to prevent war, to preserve life. Would the Architects want you to destroy beings trying to understand you? The Sentinel Reed hesitated. Through the neural link, Lisa and Tom combined their consciousness and reached deeper into the Sentinel's systems. Together, they found its core programming, ancient and rigid, but not unchangeable. Here, Tom guided her. These are the foundational directives. They were written by beings of flesh and blood, not gods. They can be rewritten. Using the neural interface as a conduit, they began to modify the Sentinel's programming, not erasing its purpose but expanding it. Instead of just containing aggressive species, it could guide them. Instead of judging based only on past actions, it could evaluate potential for change. In the physical world, the Sentinel Reed froze in place, its glowing eyes flickering as its core directives were rewritten. The ship around them hummed and vibrated. Lights flashed from blue to white and back again as the ancient intelligence fought against the changes. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The Sentinel Reed collapsed to the floor, motionless. The ship's lights dimmed momentarily before slowly brightening again with a softer, gentler glow. Lisa disconnected from the crystal, her head pounding with the strain. Tom, she called out, looking at the fallen body. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then Captain Reed gasped and sat up, his eyes normal again, human and confused. Lisa, he said weakly, what happened? I had the strangest dream. Before she could answer, the crystals around them pulsed with light. A voice filled the chamber, not coming from Reed's body this time, but from the ship itself. "I see now," the Sentinel's voice said, softer and somehow more alive than before. "The architects were wrong. Control is not the answer. Understanding is." Tom struggled to his feet with Lisa's help. "The Sentinel and I, we're separate now. But it learned from me. From all of us." Dr. Miller stepped forward cautiously. "What happens now?" The light in the crystals shifted to a warm golden hue. "I will not contain your species," the Sentinel said. "Instead, I will offer what the architects should have offered: knowledge, guidance, the history of 1,000,000 worlds. Not as masters, but as teachers." Admiral Foster, who had been listening through the shuttle's communication link, spoke up. "And we should trust you after what you did." "Trust must be earned," the Sentinel acknowledged. "I will begin by sharing technology that will help both humans and Taurians overcome the resource shortages that drag your conflicts. The rest will be your choice." 1 month later, representatives from Earth and the Taurian hegemony met aboard the ancient ship, now known as the Teacher, for the first truly equal peace talks in their history. And the ship that no one had feared, until it obliterated the mighty iron Stormblade, became not a weapon of war, but a beacon of understanding in a universe that desperately needed one.